get started, Snow. I'll get you introduced.
Yeah.
We have with us Snothando, who we lovingly call Snow. So, Snow, I'm going to give you like 10 seconds if you want to say your full name, because I will definitely butcher it.
Hi everyone. My name is Sno Mthimunye. Yeah, and everybody calls me Snow for short.
Thank you. So Snow hails from South Africa, and I
Awesome.
met her at a volunteering event in London, wherein we were packing and sorting food at this Houston food bank, I remember. And you were then pursuing your master's degree in marketing at Brunel University in London, and you were also on the Chevening Scholarship. Professionally, Snow is a multidisciplinary creative with a background in content marketing and advertising. She has done some stellar work with brands like Under Armour, Red Bull, Sunglass, F&B, Glenfiddich, and the list goes on. And currently, she is a content producer with NBA, which is the National Basketball Association. And I see on your Instagram that you get to travel across the continent and, cover the stories of athletes, which must be so, so exciting. And I want to hear all about your current role. But before that, I'd love for you to sort of take us through your journey, and how did you even, let's say, zero in on marketing and advertising as your field, So if you can just track us back to when you were young, what were your aspirations then, and did you sort of imagine yourself to be where you are today?
The simple answer is no, because if there's one thing that the 20s and life teaches you is that your plan always changes. Like you always need to pivot. So when I was younger, I was always a very curious child. I was somebody that was extremely extroverted. I wanted to try any and everything. And I think my mom really saw this quality in me quite early on. Unfortunately, the community that I had come from, a lot of schools or extramural activities or places that, kids could really discover themselves weren't really available. So she made it a point to put me in boarding school quite early on. I think I was 7 when I went to boarding school, 7 years old. So it was quite early on in my life. It was just when I was starting primary school. But honestly, one thing I would say is that it was one of the best decisions that she could have made, because I moved from the small town, went to the big city, was exposed to so many different people, so many different spaces. And most importantly, I got an opportunity to really explore the things that interested me, or explore new things and find out what interests me. I started playing netball for the first time. I started playing the piano. I was in the choir. I was such a curious child. I was doing dance school. I was just involved in so many aspects of life. And I think it just opened up such a whirlwind of different opportunities for me to discover my passions and the skills and my natural gifted talents, right? And as time went by, as I was, doing this, I really realized that I really enjoyed the public space in terms of like, public speaking, communication, talking. I really enjoyed being on stage as well. So drama was something that really it grabbed hold of my heart. But one common thing that always stayed the same was the being in the creative space. I loved being in a creative space. I loved, being able to socialize and work with other people in a creative space as well. So whether that was in a choir, or whether that was in dance school, or whether that was in sport when I was playing netball, basketball, it was just being around people and being able to be social around people, but have a common passion, be around people that are really creative minded. So obviously held a number of, leadership positions as I was going on. And that's when I really discovered that, oh my gosh, like I'm not just have a natural gifted talent. I can actually do something with this. I can lead, I can lead in these aspects that I love. And my peers actually believed me in that. And I think it's because of the passion that I really put into everything that I did. So so left obviously high school, and during that time of high school, and I'm so grateful for having that experience of even being in boarding school specifically, because it really allowed me to sort of become independent and have an independent mind, which is such an important part of that transition between being in school and then leaving school and ultimately living on your own and going to university and becoming an adult. So it was really the foundation of building my independence and building my ability to always be curious. So left high school, went to the University of Cape Town, completely different province, 2 hours away from where I went to school. And it was really just my ambition, really. Like, I was just always such a curious mind, and my ambition to want to be, at the best university in Africa and study there. But not only just study there, but I specifically chose, a course that was in line with my talents and my passions, and how do I turn that into skill sets that can put me in the workforce. So did my undergraduate degree in media studies and communication, as well as international relations, and then did my honors degree in journalism and communication. And that's when I guess that professional career really started, where I like, okay, cool. Was involved in a few things during my university, whether it was the school newspaper, whether it was leading the house committee, whether it was being a captain of the netball squad. I was really just involved again in these positions that allowed me to narrow down on where I wanted to go as far as my career is concerned. But yeah, basically from a foundational point of view, it was just being exposed to opportunity to discover the things that I was interested in, and being my mom taking that decision to basically send me away and go to boarding school and leave home at a young age allowed me to discover those things, but also built my independence to be able to be an independent thinker and move on my own and make my own sort of discover my own interests ultimately. So yeah.
Yeah, lovely to hear that, Snow. And it's so critical that as children we get the exposure, and like we're also so lucky to sort of figure out early on in life like what we really like, right? Like what I'm also hearing from you is that there was a lot of self-awareness in your own journey. Like you figured out that these are the things you're good at, and you kept at it, and you said, okay, my undergrad degree also will be in a field which sort of helps me leverage the strengths I have. So lovely to hear that. And you worked with so many brands now, and you have so many exciting stories to share. So if you can sort of share with us, let's say the most memorable, or you could share the most challenging project that you've done so far.
Sure, there's been so many, but I think the most notable one was when sort of the world was in that pandemic space and everybody did not know what was going to happen, what the future looked like. Everybody, there was so much angst during that time, and the world was experiencing the same thing together. I was at the time working at a digital marketing agency here in Johannesburg, and the pandemic had hit, and a lot of agencies rely on sort of clients in terms of the work that comes into the agency. We rely on clients basically for the stability of the agency, and because the clients themselves or the companies themselves were still figuring out in terms of, okay, what is the implication of this on our business if it means that our doors are shut and we can't be outside, people can't go outside, people can't do their banking, people can't do their shopping, people can't move. What is the implication thereof? And, during that time, a lot of our colleagues were being then retrenched because the business just could no longer sustain itself, right? So for me, I recognized that because people were being retrenched, the workload actually started to pile up. There were other things that I had to take on, that my team had to take on, that we hadn't done before. So because of the difficult place that the company was at, a solution that I had introduced was for us to potentially work with, freelancers on a contract or project to project basis, bringing them on as and when we needed them, but also still giving people an opportunity to earn an income. Because when it comes to even freelancers, and I can relate to this because I've done freelancing myself, it's like you don't know where your next paycheck is going to come from, or you don't know when your next job is going to come from, and you're unable to sustain yourself. So I called on my network, I called on people that I knew, and I was like, listen, we have these projects coming up. Can you take it on? No matter how small or big or whatever the case may be, do you have capacity? And that really saved us a lot in a space where the business was really, really strung in terms of the workload piling up and still having to meet the deliverables for our clients. But at the same time, it became an ongoing initiative that we ended up actually using freelancers going forward, even when the world started opening up. So that was a very difficult time. As I said, colleagues were getting retrenched. You know, we didn't know in terms of, you know, whether we'd be next or whether, you know, the business would be able to sustain itself. It was such a scary time, and it was important for us, for even just consumers, to keep them calm, to reassure them that, yes, this is going on right now. But it was important that our messaging reassured them that, you know, whether it was, let's say, banking clients, that they were still able to do their banking, that their money was still safe, that they can still have peace of mind, even though they are at home. So communicating those messages was really important during that time. I mean, another example that I can give, and a recent example, is currently in my work, right? So I work in a predominantly male-dominated space. I work with athletes. I work with in a space where there's a lot of conversations being had around, you know, women in sport. There's a lot of conversation have around the pay gap, around gender equity in the workspace, and sort of trying to bring in those conversations within the environments in which we work in, on how we can further open that up, you know. So right now we really are in a space of how do we then bring that conversation in a space of the NBA, right? How do we bring in that conversation in the space of, you know, telling the stories about the realities that women face or female athletes face, as well as women in sport face in general, and having that conversation broadly. And it's an important one because it's so important and so difficult because there's so many facets, then so many intersections that different women have. Black woman experience is different to a white woman's experience, is different to a woman in the LGBTQI community, or a woman with a disability. So how do you represent all of those in a conversation so that you're having an authentic and real conversation about the realities that we experience, or that women experience in the world, and not only in the world, in a sports world, and not only in the sports world, in a male-dominated sport. Yeah. So that has been very difficult to conceptualize. And it's so funny how intertwined my identity is to my work. I can't separate being a Black woman to the work that I do, you know, and that's what I love about marketing. It's so, you're speaking about human truths, and you can't speak about human truths when you're not in tune with who you are as a person within that space, you know. So it's challenging because it also can't be personal. It has to be professional. So like, how do we have a professional conversation, but at the same time, it also represents the full reality and not just the reality that we see on one side, on the left or on the right. So yeah.
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 No, that's so many, you know, nuggets of, I think, advice and what you were also sharing. While you were speaking, I got curious that, you know, you have like this vast experience working with so many brands. And right now you're also working with one of the biggest brand, right? And then you decided to do a master's in the middle of all of this, right? So what really got you to, you know, even think that I think I need a master's at this point? And do you feel that sort of propelled you where you are, or that was also like, you know, a standalone experience? It was a good experience, but, you know, you would have made it to NBA irrespective. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the decision to do a master's right in the middle of your career and sort of just put everything on pause it's not an easy decision, but I feel like it came at just the right time, because I was feeling like in my career I wasn't doing work that was of purpose. I felt like I was stuck. I wasn't happy in the role that I was in. I wasn't happy in the company that I was at. I was just not happy with the circumstance of my professional career. And I just felt like not only did I need a break to figure out the direction that I want to take my professional career, but I needed to upskill myself, because I'm operating now in the marketing advertising space and not having a qualification to back it up, or not having the full sort of theoretical understanding of the discipline to really back up a lot of the campaigns that we do, or the work and the projects that we do. You know, you're sitting in a boardroom with people that are highly qualified, and whether they're using jargon or have the strategic mindset to think about ways and how you can, you know, communicate certain concepts or messaging, and you're unable to do that because you just have sort of like your basic communications or journalism degree that doesn't necessarily speak directly to what you're doing right now, right? So I chose, you know, when I applied for Chevening, or when I was actually applying for many other scholarships, I knew that this was my opportunity to really upskill myself, to really, bring on the skill sets and the discipline of marketing that I hadn't had before, because I didn't do it as an undergraduate. But also a time just for me to just reflect and be intentional about what type of career I wanted to build for myself, because I was very unsure and very angsty at that time in terms of like, what do I really want? Where do I want to go? How do I tap into my different talents and passions and things that I'm interested in, but like in a space that feels like I'm doing something of purpose. Like I want to feel like I'm actually making an impact, So then, I took the leap of faith, started applying for, various scholarships. There was no way I was going to pay for a master's degree. I just did not have the financial means to do it. So applied for scholarships, got rejected to some. To be quite honest, I only got accepted to Chevening. I think I applied to, yeah. I applied to a couple of scholarships. And initially I wanted to actually study in the US. But I'm so glad, like, it's just amazing how God's timing works and how intentional he is, because I feel like the UK was actually the place that I needed to be, and of course, I didn't expect much from Chevening, to be honest. Once you get so many rejections in life, you just honestly feel like I have nothing to lose at this point. So let me just apply. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, okay.
Yeah.
On to the next type of vibe, you become numb. So applied, and yeah, I was very ecstatic because, like I said, I feel like when I found out, I had just moved to another company 3 months before. So I'd only had been in that company for 3 months. Again, hadn't feel like it was the right fit for me. And when Chevening happened, I just felt like, wow, this is exactly what I needed right now. And this is exactly where I feel like timing wise, I was in that place where I'm just looking to pivot. I'm looking to pivot my career. And this is the perfect place to do it. I'm not only upskilling myself, but I'm giving myself an opportunity to really be intentional about the career that I want to build for myself. So yeah, the 20s will do that to you. Hey, like you need to know how to move, because yeah, you're going to find yourself stuck. You're going to find yourself in a place where you just feel like you don't know what you're doing. But something is going to happen that validates that you're on the right track. And Chevening was really that. It validated that, listen, you're actually on the right track.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No,
I went for it and I was like, yes.
Love that. You sort of verbalize what I have also been feeling. Like, even in my personal journey, I kept thinking, like, am I feeling stagnated? Like, do I need a master's? And when this happened, I was like, yeah, actually, I do. And what I'm doing right now is it's completely different from what I was doing earlier, but I'm so, so happy because I'm actually making change, So, and even when you were talking, Snow, I heard so much
Yes.
intention in everything that you do, right? Purpose. I heard that word. So with that, like my next question to you is, if someone wants to follow on, the path that you've been, follow similar footsteps, is a woman from Africa, and wants to have a similar journey, what would be some advice or two pieces of advice that you would give to them?
Merlin, I mentioned earlier on that I was always a child that had a curious mind. And I would say to somebody that is really trying to figure out is be curious, right? Try everything so that you know what it is that really speaks to you. When you start off as an adult, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what the future looks like. And even if you do, you must have the discernment to know that those things will change. They will change. That's one thing that's definite, So one piece of advice that I would say is that try everything. Be curious about everything, no matter where you're working or where you're volunteering or where you're studying. Be part of everything, because each thing that you're involved in, you'll take elements of it that you really like. And that's going to help you shape the type of, whether it's professional career or the person or the friend or the partner or the business person, whatever it is that you want to be, because there's elements that you'll take from each of it. There's this term in the professional world, I think we all know it is, it's transferable skills, right? So, like you mentioned, you may not have been in the job that you were, or in the industry, or whatever the case may be, that you're in when you started, but there are skills that you may have had in those jobs that you now still kind of use or tap in, whether it's hard skills or soft skills that you tap into, that you still use. So being curious and being able to stretch yourself beyond just the rigid, this is what I studied, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I do every single day. No, break out of that, try everything, be curious, ask questions in terms of, even with the people that you work with, in terms of what they do, and be involved in that. Have a curious mind is such an important element, because it helps craft the path that you want to take, because you take the best parts of that to ultimately, craft your path. And then I would say, like, the second thing is, like, my favorite quote is write your purpose in pen and your plan in pencil, right? So what that means, to write your purpose in pen, is that your purpose will always remain the same. Your purpose will never change, but the plan to get there will always change. So you need to write it in pencil. It will erase and you'll write it again, erase and write it again. The plan, you're going to have to pivot, you're going to have to move, change, and write it again. But the core thing that feeds your soul, the core thing that you feel like when you do it wholeheartedly. You do it without needing an incentive. You do it with everything that you have. That's the core purpose of what you do. And that will always remain the same, or always remain the same. But don't be dismayed or discouraged if plans do change. Because one thing about us when we're young, we have a set plan. Some of us want to, get to this position at a certain time. Some of us want to get married at a certain age. Some of us want to earn this much. Some of us want to do this for our families. There's so many impacts that we want to make at certain, and if it doesn't happen at that particular time or age, we get discouraged, and then we lose our purpose and we give up on our purpose, So write your purpose in pen, but your plan in pencil, because plans will always change. You need to learn how to pivot in this life, because life happens, but the thing that fuels you, that will always be your North Star. So yeah, I guess those are my two pieces of advice.
So well put. And, like people like us, at least personally speaking for myself, like failure is something I don't know how to work with. But had I written my plan in a pencil or with a pencil, like I would have known that there is another way of doing this, right? So I think that also sort of prepares you that, okay, if it didn't work out, there's another path, and you can obviously try that. Thanks for that, Sno. Aside from like the advice, I was also very curious. Like you're a person who's so like full of life. You bring joy to so many conversations, and I've met you only once, but I've seen that, let's say, through an Instagram. What's the secret sauce behind being happy?
Oh, thanks, Relen. Yeah, I feel like I have to say, I feel like when we first met, it was such a vibe click. It was very quick, and obviously we were at the food bank, and we were doing an activity, but like I think our energies were so like in sync. But to be quite honest, for me, I love living my life in a bubble. And when I say I like living my life in a bubble, I love living my life with intention in my space and creating a sense of peace for myself, and sort of guarding my bubble as much as possible, to not let anything that doesn't fit into that space, or doesn't bring peace to that space, or doesn't add to that space, to not have any place in that space, right? I'm huge on my faith. I believe in God. I lean on my faith in everything that I have, in everything that I do. I'm very intentional about having a conversation with God to guide me in terms of the path that I need to take. I'm big on manifestation. I write down the things that I want. I wrote down chevening. I said I wanted chevening. I said I wanted to study the master's, and I gave it a timeline, and it happened. I have the receipts. If you want to add them to this clip, I will add them to this clip. I literally wrote it on. I literally wrote it on my phone, because I believe in manifestation. I believe in creating your world. Like, you can carve your path, So I'm huge on that. And most importantly, I think having the right people around you is so important. I think we hear it all the time that, oh, have the people, but it's such an important thing because it really calls out, you know, the type of person that you will ultimately be. You're a reflection of the people that you are with. So my friends have been incredible and my circle is small and I like it that way. And each of my friends serve a different purpose in my life. You know, I'm not a huge person that rolls in squads or like, you know, we do everything together. We're into the same thing. No, each of my friends play different roles in my life and I tap into that because I know that that's what connects us, you know. So yeah, that ultimately I would say just protecting my Bible, creating my peace and being intentional about, you know, keeping my spirituality intact is how I just live my best life.
I'm going to definitely take away the whole point about, living in your bubble, but with purpose. I think that's so, so key because
Yeah.
the world around us on a daily basis, there's just so much happening. And, you get impacted by it, you get affected by it, but like how to maintain your own sanity. So thanks for that. My last question to you, Snow, is if you were to leave us with any recommendations on what you read, what you listen to, that'll be interesting. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes. So I'm a huge podcast girl. I love podcasts, whether I'm driving or I'm working out or, you know, I'm walking, whatever it is. I love podcasts. The first podcast that I absolutely, without fail, always listen to is On Purpose by Jay Shetty. I think it's a very popular podcast, but I think it's popular for a reason because it speaks about mindfulness and mental health. He brings on various guests as well, you know, to give you insights on sort of how to protect your mind and how to be more intentional in the way that you live your life. So On Purpose is one of those podcasts. The second one, as I mentioned, I'm a very spiritual person. So Sarah Jakes Roberts, she has sermons that she does that are just so incredibly powerful. And every time she speaks, I feel like she's speaking to me. I think finding people that live a similar lived experience as you, whether it's somebody of the same gender, race, culture, language, it really helps to tap into your lived experience and validate the things that you go through. So I feel like she does that for me, you know, and being a female pastor and being so impactful, it's just she speaks in my type of voice in that I can understand, you know. And then another podcast that I would highly recommend for people that are in the marketing or business space, Harvard Business Review has a podcast called Cold Call, right? Cold Call. It's a really powerful podcast. They bring on various lecturers or opinion leaders to come speak about various case studies that are happening around the world on companies that are impacting change, or whether about the conversations around diversity inclusion in the workplace, or whether about various healthcare systems. And it's very topical and very business minded driven. So if you're somebody that enjoys insights, that wants to keep abreast in terms of what's happening in the business space around the world, around your particular continent, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. So podcasting is literally my baby. It's my favorite thing. And then not only just reading, but journaling. I like to write down once I've either listened to a podcast or listened to a sermon. I really like to write down sort of the key learnings from that I picked up, because that makes me sort of aware of what I was listening to and what lessons I got from it. So writing down what you learn, or writing down something you think about, or even writing down your ideas that coming out of the shower. Like I get the craziest ideas when I'm in the shower, but immediately when I go out, I pick up my phone and write it on my notes. I don't know what it's for. I don't know when I'll ever tap into it, but it's just good to write things down that you remember, that you don't forget, So yeah, the habit of writing is really important as well.
I fully agree. I'm also
Yeah.
big on journaling. I journal almost every day and it's so, so helpful. This was fantastic, Snow. Thank you so very much for making the time. I'm so glad I met someone, who sort of followed on her curiosity and, made her way here. It's amazing. And I'm taking a lot of the advice that you give personally for myself. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being such a beautiful soul, such an amazing soul. Like you said, our time was so short, but one thing I can say, like, you just radiate such positive energy, and people always draw themselves to you. Like, you're such an incredible person, and I feel like the energy that you are is what you give out, you know. So thank you for having me and seeing me, and congratulations again on this podcast. I
Yeah.
can't wait to. I need to watch. I will admit, I haven't seen it yet. I need to. Like, straight after this, I'm actually gonna listen to some episodes. So yeah.